Good morning, Rabbi Isai. Today we're going back to Elu Trefus. But before we do, we have to finish yesterday's daf. We're holding by Omar Zairi, a little bit below the halfway line on Ayin Hey Amid Beis. 24 lines from the bottom. Wow. Omar Zairi or Reb Chanina. One of those fascinating halachas in all of Shas, the Ben Pekua. When there's a fetus, there's a baby inside the mother, cow, sheep, and you shech the mother. In certain situations, you don't have to do a shechita at all on the baby. You can just eat it. The Chulin Shizuri says, even if the animal gets up and walks around, even if it lives a long time afterwards, it could live 5 years, all you do is knock it over the head with a bat, kill it, and then you eat it. You don't have to do shechita. So says the Gemara, Omaziri over Mechanina, halacha Reb Shimon Shizuri. The halacha is like Reb Shimon Shizuri, that even if it walks around, it's a ben pekua, even in the 9th month, even a full term animal. This is where they got the idea in Australia that if you have a couple, the father and the mother cow, let's say, are b'nei pekua, then their offspring automatically are b'nei pekua for all generations. Rabbi Yochanan Omar, who mutter? The ben pekua himself is mutter or b'nei aser. Again, we're talking about the problem is the gzeira that people are going to think that you can eat animals without shechita. Imagine if this project would have taken off in Australia. So the next generation, like, I'll give you an example, like kids, where I grew up where I lived in Chicago for many years. So a typical kid didn't know that such a thing is you're not allowed to carry on Shabbos. They don't know. You're born with an eruv, the whole neighborhood has an eruv, so you don't even know it's an issue. Then one day they tell you, oh, the air is down. What are you talking about? What do you mean? You're allowed to play basketball now? Here, if it becomes a thing that you don't have to shech this animal, there's no trevis, so the next generation won't even know about shechita. It's one of the concerns. Anybody that speaks Hebrew, what's a doiv? A duba is a bear. Over here, Rashi says duba is a wolf. And in fact, the famous story with Reb Chanina ben Doisa, when the goats went into the forest and they came out with dubim on their, so Rashi says it's wolves, came out with wolves on their horns. He's consistent that duba is that's like what we read earlier. Sanya Dibi means wolves, exactly. That the wolves hate that part of the pictures of bears. Yeah, of course. Le dubim v'leyar. They say that's where it comes from. That's where it comes from. No. Also, so he had a ben pekua that was attacked by a wolf. Also, so he got a little bite by a wolf. What's the big deal? You can't trafe him up. He's a ben pekua. You could cut him with a saw. You could cut him by a wolf. You can knock his head off. You could shoot him. You can do whatever you want. Shecht it. You allowed to eat it for generations. Even Rabbi Yochanan said that you need shechita only its son. Rabbi Yochanan really doesn't hold that. He was just saying that according to Rabbi Shizuri, even Reb Shimon Shizuri agrees that you can't eat the future generation, only the first generation. But Rabbi Yochanan argues on this. Halacha Reb Shimon Shizuri. The halacha is like Reb Shimon Shizuri that a ben pekua, even a full-term fetus that walks around for 5 years, plowed the fields, you're allowed to kill it and eat it without a shechita. We have another rule that all halachas are like Reb Shimon. If Reb Shimon Shizuri says something, the halacha is like him automatically in all mishnayos. I know, really. I disagree. I don't believe that the halacha is like Reb Shimon Shizuri everywhere. In fact, the halacha is not like him anywhere. Only in two places the halacha is like him. Only twice. What's Mesukan? Mesukan means a person that's in danger. His life is in danger. A person that's dying. If a person is being led away in chains, in other words, he's about to die, he has the death penalty, and in the last second he goes, he says, write a get to my wife. Now, what did he forget to say? He forgot to say no. He didn't say give it to her. He said write a get. Okay, right. But since he's not, his brain is not operating on all cylinders, we understand what he wants. He said right, what he meant is give. It was probably a situation where there was a problem of yibum. He didn't want his wife to fall to the brother-in-law that she doesn't like. So he said he meant that she should get a get before he dies. And then they said, you know what, let's add to this. Even somebody go, in those days, there's a 50-50. If you went on one of those rickety wooden ships, you're going to make a little parnasa, a good chance you're not coming back. So if somebody says, write a get, he meant give it. The same halacha applies to somebody who's sick and dying. When he says kisvu, he means to new. So we pass like Reb Shimon Shizuri even in that case of a Mesukah. Trumas Meiser Shildmai. What's that? Maybe I'm just thinking about Chaim Levi here. Trumas Meiser. You have guy buys a bunch of fruit. He has the fruit. He has to give 10% to the Levi. The Levi, once he gets to 10%, he gives 10% of what he has, which is one apple. He got 10. He takes one and gives to the Kohen. That's Trumas Meiser. Now, this is the whole story right over here. This guy is the Amoritz of Shas. We use him as the Amoritz. He's selling fruit. And Amoritz sometimes, or most of the time actually, he does give Trumas and Meiser. He's good. His stuff is good. But we call it Demai. Chacham said, we can't trust him. On the Truma part, because it's only 1 or 2%, we trust him. But on the 10% give to the Levi, we don't trust him. So therefore, you have to take the Meiser yourself. Now, you bought fruit from an Amoritz. You have to separate the Trumas Meiser part. The part of the Levi, you're not a Levi. The part of the Levi you give to the card, you have to separate. What happened was, you separated and then it got mixed in right back to all the fruit. So now, let's just see. It's really should say Trumas Meiser. This is Meiser. So we allow him to ask the Amoritz if he took Trumas Meiser.
We trust Amoritz. You sold me. You took my Sarah, right?
Sure. I Meisered everything.
I Meisered it. I Meisered it. He's such an Amoritz, he doesn't even know how to say Meiser. So, why do we trust him? Because it's a great loss. It's a Hefsed Meruba, so we trust him. That's the halacha of Reb Shimon Shizuri. That's the second halacha we pass like him. Trumas Meiser Shedemai Shechazar L'Mekayma fell after you separated the Trumas Meiser fell into the pile. Why is it a great loss? Because now you have a bunch of fruit that only one type of person can eat it. Rabbi Schoenberg and Donnie Fine, those guys. So the price is very, very low. So because we don't want him to suffer, we don't want him to be able to sell only to a Kohen. So we say you could trust the Amoritz in this case. Taisa says that and it says this lashon over here. Af b'chol, even in a weekday. So Taisa says the difference because he says only Shabbos. Shabbos he says a lashon mipnei she'emas Shabbos olav. He has the fear of Shabbos. You hear this? Even and there's a famous joke. What Amoritz? Even Amoritz has the fear of Shabbos. Af b'chol zog the Gemara Mishnah. So now we're going back to Elu Trefus a little bit. So let me just show you this real quickly. This is the build of an animal's hind leg. It's a little bit more complex than a human's leg, because We have 2 major bones. Animals have 3. These are the 3 major bones. They have the thigh on top, that thigh, the red. They have the shank, the purple, and they have what they call a cannon, the long one. Now, as we're going to see, if the thigh bone on top breaks, there's no machlokes. Everybody agrees that the animal's treif. If you not break, cut, severed, cut. If you cut the green one on the bottom, that's why it's green. According to everybody, the animal is not a treifa. What we're going to discuss 3-way machlokes actually in the purple. So according to Reb Yehuda, the 2 top bones are red. In other words, the purple is also red. He considers it, if it breaks, if you cut the middle bone, the purple bone, treif. That would look like this. Anywhere on those 2 bones you cut, treif. Comes Zula and says no, the opposite. The middle bone is actually green. The middle bone is green, so if you cut the middle bone, 100% kosher. So where's the third shita? How can you have a third shita? The third shita is Rav Papa. He's a little bit here, a little bit there. Depends what part of the bone. The bottom part, next to the Stefansky Daf, is red. So the Stefansky Daf, by the way, you see that funny bone that sticks out over there? I forgot what it's called. Like, pops out that way. Yeah. That's right over there, Shkoyach, Avrami. Right over there is where the Stefansky Daf is, where this famous Stefansky Daf, like the Achilles tendon, tendons, let's call it a bunch of tendons. So that area, if you cut, says Rav Papa, no good. But if you cut above, it is good. Wow. What's the obvious question? It doesn't make any sense. You cut below, it's okay. You cut above, it's okay. But you cut in the middle, it's not okay. Wait a minute. How can you cut above and still be okay? Aren't you cutting sinews and all that stuff? We actually had it in Chulin a few times, this exact idea, and that's all we're discussing right now. That's the Elu Treifas of today. Well, we're going to have more, but that's the gist of this whole Amud right here. Says the Mishnah, Behema shenechtechu ragleha, an animal that its back feet are cut. Min arkuva ulamata. Arkuva is a joint for the most part. Now, if we look over here, there's quite a few joints here, but there's you can see over here it says arkuva. You see arkuva? So this is joint number 1 between the thigh and the shank is one joint. There's another joint right over here between the shank, between the purple and the green, which Rashi doesn't really address the joint part. He calls the entire shank bone the joint, the arkuva tachtoina. It's actually machlokes between the English art scroll and the Hebrew art scroll in their picture. In the English, he calls the joint because he doesn't like, I guess the English art scroll didn't like the fact that the whole bone, it's not a joint, it's a bone. But the Hebrew, which is more accurate, I think, because it came out later, and in Rashi it seems like it's pretty obvious that he's talking about the whole bone. So we'll see. Min arkuva, again, arkuva is a joint. From the joint down, that's where the machlokes is. What joint? That's how you could have a machlokes. Is it talking about only the lower joint, and that's why you only have one little part green, or something about the upper joint, and then you have 2 giant bones that are green that you're allowed to, that if they're cut, it's not a treifa. Min arkuva lamala, but once you go above the joint, that's certainly the thigh bone is above all joints, but maybe even the shank is above the lower joint, and memela min arkuva lamala psula. Strafe, you're not allowed to eat this animal. So we're going to talk about the gidin. The Stefansky Daf, we already showed it once, show it again. What if there's a broken bone? So sometimes a broken bone is so severe that it can't heal and the animal will die. If there's a lot of the majority of the flesh around it, the muscle, the flesh, so it could survive. Then you could eat this animal. If you don't have a majority of meat, all this will be explained in great detail. We're talking about the lower joint. So shita number 1, lower joint. So says Rabbi Yehuda, Memela, let's go to Rabbi Yehuda. Lemata, what is okay? Lemata ben arkuva, from the joint. He still didn't explain what joint. Lemala, lemata ben arkuva. What's treif if the leg was severed above the joint? Be'eza arkuva amru, what joint? Ba'arkuva hanim keres imarosh. You see, when you sell a head of an animal, there's very little meat in there, so you have to compensate the buyer. So you give him the lower part of the leg, the green part in this picture. So we're talking about the lower joint. What can you do with that lower part? I guess you can make gala from it. Ula argues, Rabbi Isayo, we're talking about the upper joint that you can recognize right away. I think this is what it means. I just put an arrow here. I hope I'm right. The joint that is very visible in a camel. Because if you take the same joint in a cow, it's like it's hidden. You don't really see that joint. There's a lot of meat. In a camel, it's right there. It's a different color, the whole thing. Yeah. So that's an upper joint. The upper joint. Mimela what? So what is he saying? What he's saying is, I'm going to the upper joint. Everything to the upper joint is green. If you sever any part in the green, even the cannon, the shank, even the green, the middle bone, sever it, kosher. It's from the upper joint and top, the thigh bone. That's the big problem. I have a question. According to my shita, that it's only the thigh bone that's severed. In other words, I'm talking about the upper joint. There's a second halach in the Mishnah that if you sever the tzemes hagidin, which is lower down on the shank bone, almost in this area, right over here, with that funny protruding bone, now it makes sense. There's 2 halachas. Halacha number 1 is, if you cut the red bone, treif. Not only that, but if you cut the tendons, the sinews on the green bone, also treif. But according to you, Rabbi Yehuda, that you say that if you cut these 2 red bones, it's treif. Not only that, that if you cut the red bone with the tzemes hagidin, it's already treif from cutting the bone. Why do you have to tell me that you cut the tzemes hagidin? So it's not. So he says the obvious answer. Wait a minute. What if you just cut the tzemes hagidin without cutting the bone? That's what I meant. If you cut the tendons, just the tendons on that shank bone, the middle bone, you're also matrif the animal. And if you cut the bone without the tendons, you're also matrif. But that's not a good teretz. Why? So let's see. I'm talking about the upper joint. It makes sense. If you cut the thigh bone, treif. If you cut below the thigh bone, not treif. But if you cut the tzemes hagidin below the thigh bone, yes, treif. So we have 2 different halachas. Tzemes hagidin adds something. But you say that below the thigh bone, in other words, the shank bone, the 2 red bones in this picture, if you cut them, you are making the animal treif. So what did you add by cutting the tzemes hagidin? If you cut the bone, the shank bone, the middle bone, you're making it treif without cutting the tzemes hagidin, without cutting any sinews. I am saying a chiddush. I'm saying that if you cut the sinews, even without touching the bone, you made it treif. 2 halachas. But he says that doesn't fit into the lashon. I'm very makbid on the lashon. The lashon says v'nechtechu katani. Nechtechu means it's a complete separation, a new word. Anyways, when you severed the bone, nechtechu means you severed the bone completely with the sinews, with everything. That's what nechtechu means. Ishtik. Rav Yehuda didn't know what to say. He couldn't So he couldn't fix his pshat. He says, Nechtechu, how can you say that the pshat is cutting the bone without the sinews or cutting the sinews without the bone? Nechtechu means you're cutting both of them. The boss is an Ofek Omar. After he left, my time in Loyamirle, I had a great comeback. Why was I quiet as if I was defeated? My time in Loyamirle, Lemato Menar Kuva, you're right. Below, what's okay, what's kosher? Below the lower joint. That's great. The can. Lemalo mitzomis hagidin. Oh, so what he's changing is this. I just put it over here. He's saying that in the shank bone, let's zoom in, because I did this, so it's not the best. Until now, we were saying that the whole shank bone is red. Cut anywhere on the red shank bone, no good. Now Rabbi says, I should have said, no, there's a part of the shank bone that's lower down, that if you cut that bone, it's kosher. Only above the top part of why is it kosher? Because that's the area. This is the area of the Tzomis Hagidin. So if I cut the Tzomis Hagidin, then it's treif. But if I cut the bone over there, it's not. What I meant to say that cutting the bone on the shank bone, I only meant one part of the shank bone, the upper part of it. No? In other words, we're changing a little bit of the pshat. I'm saying Reb Yehuda is changing. Until now, he asked me a question on the entire shank bone. No, there's two parts of the shank bone. Similar to what Rav Papa says in reverse. Rav Papa says the exact opposite. He says it's green on top, red on the bottom. He says no, it's green on the bottom. The whole lower part. This makes a lot of sense, actually. There's a part of the shank bone and lower that it's completely kosher. Unless you sever the Tzomis Hagidin where it says these are Tzomis Hagidin. So it says Hader Omar, but then Rabbi Yehuda thought about it. He says no. When we spoke about before, he came back to me and he said the word nechtechu means everything was severed. Let's be medaik in the words. Just like before he was medaik against me in the word nechtechu. He said nechtechu means the bone and the Tzomis Hagidin were severed. Here's another problem. It says minar kuva ulemalo, from the joint and up. The joint is in this picture where the green ends and the red begins. That's where the joint is. You can't say, oh no, I didn't mean the first 7 inches above the joint. It says from the joint, it means from the joint. The first millimeter above that green is already treif. So you can't play games here. So it's a good thing I didn't answer him that. Then finally we have the shita of Rav Papa. Rav Papa says, what does the joint mean? The joint means the upper joint, by the thigh. So we're talking about the lower bone, that's kosher. If you sever over there, it's kosher. Right, this area right over here, with the funny bone, that's the Tzomis Hagidin area, everything below that is kosher. The upper means the red bone right over here, the thigh. And he didn't address at all the middle bone, the shank. So too, if the Tzomis Hagidin was removed. Memela. The lower part of the shank bone, if you cut it over there, where the Tzomis Hagidin is, on the shank bone, red, no good. The upper part, so you see what's going on here? It's green, red, green, which is a big problem logically. How do you have green above a red? How can you sever? The lower part is red. If I sever over there, the animal's treif. But if I go higher up on the bone, then it's okay. Didn't I hit the same sinews and everything on top? But that's what he says. Noob shot. There's a complete red on top. The thigh, you hit the thigh, treif. On the bottom, totally kosher. The middle bone depends. The lower part of the middle bone where the Tzomis Hagidin is, treif. Above that, green, Barkuva Gufa, what does it mean, the joint? Kidu'ula. It's referring to the upper joint. The upper joint. And that's why he says, the thigh is treif. Omer Shaya. As Reb Shaya, oh, sorry. Gufa Kidu'ula Omer Shaya. Yeah, you're right. Barkuva Gufa Kidu'ula Omer Shaya. It's like Ula Omer Shaya. Ask the Gemara, not Reb Shaya. The Gemara asks, is it possible that you cut above, on the green arrow above, and the animal will live? But lower down, if you cut it, it's going to die. They take it very seriously. No xeris. This is a fact. You cannot bring logic when it comes to treifa. In order to you can't, like we had it, I forgot, with the spleen or something, a hole in this should be a treif just because of a hole in that. And the Gemara brings this Gemara that I involved, that what? If you cut below a certain area, it will die. Above, it's not about logic, it's about a fact. It doesn't make sense. Rabbi, it doesn't make sense. But you know what? If you're going to cut it over here, it's going to die. I don't know why. It's going to die. Lower down, die. Higher up, no. Okay, so now we're moving on to another sugya. We're still in Eil Trevis here. Here we go. It's Kishmak. Should I show you real quickly? So over here you have this giant guy, and then you have these two guys right over here. Let me just show you real quickly on my glove. You see 2 and 1. This is from the Shechita. We took this from the Shechita. This is ours. I'm trying to get my money's worth. Couldn't eat it, I might as well show it. So I was thinking, these are sinews, and they go down over here. We show the fat. There's different ones. Okay. So now, real quickly, Gershon, you got it? Push the button over there. Rab Omar Ravashi, da garmo lebar. A garmo lebar, meaning, a garma is a bone. So, if you look closely over here, you see this funny bone sticking out, the protruder guy? A garma, it's mid-air, where the sinew is not touching the bone. It's from that line, from the bone, but above it. That's the Tzayim Sagidin. The next shita is a garma legav. The one that's actually hugging the bone. So, Rabbi Omar Ravashi, the Garmul Bar, it's the sinew above. Rabbi Omar Ravashi, the Garmul Gav, lower. Rabbi Berei, the Rabbi Omar Ravashi, the Lavei Arkuma, what's above the Arkuma. So there's a bone here. You see this little, it's hard to see. It's called in English a talus. It's a small bone right over there. You see, like in the joint, it helps the joint.
The middle one?
No. Let me take a laser. This, right over here. This bone, it's a small bone. It's not, you can see there's a cut, there's a break in it. So now that's, let's turn that off for a second so I can go weiter. That area. From that bone above is the Soimis Hagidin. The Lavei above the Arkuma is the talus bone. Yosef Amar Rabban Kamei Ravav, Yosef Amar the Arkuma Gufa. We have to include also the bone itself here. That's the bone, so we're going to add a little bit more to what he just said. Not only number 3, but number 4 as well. Not just number 4. Only the area number 3 where the butchers cut open and whatever. They fillet. That's exactly what we said before. The Lavei Arkuma, above the bone, so that's Hari Tabachi is above the Arkuma. Same thing. No. Omer Rabbi Yehuda Mishmuel is a new thing. Soimis Hagidin Sha'amru. What's Soimis Hagidin? Magush Hagidin Soimtin. That's where the sinews come together. No, they attach. You see, like over here, you see where they come together on this. I don't think we have a picture of it. Somet is a junction. Yeah, where they come together.
Show it on this.
Over here. Where it says number 4, like where they come together over there. Yeah, we did freeze it. I listen to me, I heard this from a great person. Great. This time that's where the junction where they all connect together. It goes upwards. So in this picture, I guess it's like from over here down here, where the junction, almost where that green arrow is, a little bit below the green arrow, and then it goes upwards to here, and then it goes into the meat. So this area, that's the makom is on the shank bone, basically, from the beginning of the shank bone and up. If you're talking about a bull, Torah, so it's 4 fingers. And what about a small animal? If it pops out, it's Beli, if the sinews are not swallowed, what's a good word? Absorbed in the meat, you have it that's not Ashune, if they're very hard, have it you should feel these. They're tough. That's If they're very soft, have it those are already not Alim, if they're thick, have it that's a raya of Ktine, small ones, have it Chivare, thin ones, have it Chivare, white, have it Chivare, not white, have it Even the zige, if they're like pale, see-through, gav. How do you say see-through? Clear. If they're clear. You're right. Even the zige, gav, the loy chivare, Omar Amemar, the Shmeder of Zvid. As we saw, there's 3 sinews, there's 3 major gidin. Chad alima, one is very thick, u'trei katini. We mamish saw it live, right? If the major one rips as the right vinyan, then most of the structure went 5. Here, let's see. Here we go. Here's the big one and the 2 smaller ones. If you sever the large one, so you most of the structure went, because the large one is larger than both of the smaller ones. If 2 of the small ones snap as the right vinyan, then you're at a 3. 2 out of 3 are gone, so it's a problem. He says no, you could use this for us to say that this animal's kosher. If the large one snaps, you have 2 left. If the 2 small ones break, have most of the structure, and that's okay. I'll remind you of the video. It's kedai to see again. Beautiful video from Rav Weissfish.
Yeah, I'm 16 gidden. 11 on this side and 5 on the other side. And you can see each gid. Even if just one of them snapped, it's safer. Okay, so the 16 gidden, 11 on one side, 5 on the other side. Story. I was there by Abba. Who's Abba? What's his name? Ravashi. Mar bar Ravashi. Mar, the son of Ravashi, was by his father. And they brought in front of him a bird. He only found 15. He noticed that one of them is slightly different in size than the other. He opened it up. So it's a trick to make sure they have 16. Sometimes it's hiding. Says Rav, check this out. If one of them, the majority of it snaps, here you can see, it's severed only a roiv, but the other 2 are intact, that's enough to make a treif. Roiv. My rubai b'roiv echod mem, one of them is snapped for the majority. 51% of it is snapped, treif. Shmuel Amarli. So Shmuel says, no, I argue. There's 3 total sinews. Gidden. So what if one snapped? There's 2 left. That's a roiv. 2 out of 3 is a roiv. Roiv is there.
Time to take a tray. That's because he had two. A leg tray loy. What? It's tray. That's the mechol Rav Noi. Why? Rav Noi on Shmuel. So even like we say a shoelace in English. Even it has like a string of a fishing line. Nothing left to it. That's enough to keep it kosher. So, but you need that string in all three. Yeah? So if you have three that are severed roiv, but they're still holding on by a thread. Thank you, a thread. Kosher. And you said no. Some say not like Rav. Roiv means not roiv of one. Roiv of all three is severed. Treif. There's three. Each one has a third. Why is that a problem? He said the name of Shmuel. Even if there's a thread in each one, then it is kosher. If we stop here, we're going to be in a big problem. We don't have a choice. Rabbi Sai, have a wonderful day.
Merit the zchus of spreading Torah throughout the world. Sponsor a shiur today. MDYsponsor.com or sponsor at MDYDaf.com.